I was planning on taking my mom actually out to dinner at some point, but she did tell me, Cole, the early bird gets the worm, and most importantly, you have to get paid. So why not go ahead and celebrate Mother's Day later on this evening? Welcome back into Sunday Funday. Cole Thompson rocking with you right here on SEC Unfiltered. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, whether you're a dog mom, a cat mom, an actual mom, a grandmother, or you're playing the role of fun aunt, whatever it is. Happy Mother's Day from all of us here at SEC Unfiltered. We do have a jam-packed show. College football is still drastically changing to ways that we do not know are actually set in stone just yet. With the expansion of the college football playoff, what are the pros and cons with that? Also, I recently dropped my way too early 2025 college football playoff projections post-spring, so I'm going to go dissect it top to bottom, why I made the selections that I did, and most importantly, why you're allowed to go ahead and argue with me in the comment section. Also, do I really hate Texas A&M? Because I continuously get hate mail left and right from the Aggies galore. We're going to discuss that. LSU, are you actually still wide receiver you? That seems to be a conversation that nobody has the direct answer to. And finally, my top 10 transfer portal additions in the SEC. This list is probably not going to match yours, but whatever. It's my list. I can't miss. Real quickly, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video, hit the ring notification, and subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, link in the description. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, this episode is fueled by our friends over at FANDUEL. Go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU right now and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So whether you want to play the NCAA upcoming baseball season with the tournament, you want to play the NHL postseason, the NBA playoffs, or just a regular baseball game, go visit FANDUEL.com/SECU, sign up, win your first bet, get $250 in bonus bets. It's the gift that keeps on giving going into the summer months. College football, as we know it, definitely still on a road of no return that we still don't have the answer to. So according to reports, initially it was expected that we were going to expand from 12 teams to 14 teams in 2026. That might not be the case. Ross Dellinger, Yahoo Sports, recently reported that there is now drawing interest and a surge of what you would say towards a 16-team college football playoff. Now, that's just one part of the equation. The other part is there would be automatic bids. So of the 16 teams, 4 would come from the SEC, 4 would come from the Big Ten, 2 would come from the ACC, 2 would come from the Big 12, a group of 5 school, and then 3 at-large bids. This excludes Notre Dame. So really, you're looking at potentially 2 at-large bids, depending on what Notre Dame does every single season. So 4 in the SEC, 2 in the Big 10, 2 in the Big 12, 2 in the ACC, 3 at-large bids in that group of 5 school. That's your college football playoff. And on paper, I think a lot of people can actually get behind it for one main reason. It's the SEC. We're not going to be playing second fiddle or have to have these nonchalant conversations of, does Alabama, who plays the 5th hardest schedule every single year, or the 8th hardest schedule, or the 9th hardest schedule, do they have to be penalized while an SMU squad that had the 113th ranked schedule and couldn't beat its lone ranked opponent at a neutral site field where you had the lead going into the 4th quarter, are they really going to be rewarded for mediocrity? No, that's a thing of the past because Alabama would not be left out of the playoff in a 4-team playoff scenario. But here's where it gets even more interesting. We're potentially getting rid of the SEC championship. So Atlanta, Georgia, is going to be a fun place to go, just not in early December to go see 2 teams try to claim victor on who is the regular season champ in the SEC, because that game is going to be dissolved. What the plan is now is to have a play-in game. So the top 2 seeds, whoever they may be, Alabama and Texas, Georgia and Texas, Auburn and Missouri, that year automatically make the college football playoffs. So they're locked into their spots. Don't have to worry about an at-home bid. You don't have to worry about having the first round bye because we're going to get rid of those things because now we're going to have a 16-team playoff. They're locked in, no questions asked. Now the 3rd seed plays the 6th seed, and they're probably going to play them on their own backyard because they were the higher-ranked opponent. And the 4th seed is going to play host to the 5 seed. And the 2 winners in that conference and in the Big 10, my apologies, will go on to the college football playoff. And in theory, probably some of you were saying to yourself, we'll let them decide on the field. Absolutely. What's the difference between the 3 seed and the 6 seed? If they really are as advertised, shouldn't we reward the team that ends up winning the final game at the end of the line? which I would agree with you. But I've told you this many times before, and I think many others have told you this, and you still, I think, have a little bit of pushback here. Not all schedules are made the same. Not all schedules are going to end up favoring each opponent. So when you look at the grand total, there's going to be a fault here. Let's just look and say Auburn one year goes 11-1 in college football, and they end up running through the SEC, but they have one loss on their schedule, and it's to, let's just throw Georgia out there. They win the Iron Bowl. Kalen DeBoer is now in pieces. Everyone is sitting beside and saying, this is a Tigers team, but maybe Alabama wasn't good that year. Maybe when you look at the conference schedule, they ended up having the 14th ranked conference schedule, and they only played one ranked opponent, and it was Georgia, and Georgia beat them head-to-head. Well, they're going to move on. Because Georgia, though, they got the head-to-head win. But here's the problem. Georgia also had the second toughest schedule in the SEC. They had to play against a ranked LSU team, a ranked Missouri team, a ranked South Carolina team, a ranked Florida team. And they went 3-2 in that stretch. So they send the year 10-2 with a win over a team that is guaranteed put themselves already on the pedestal to go to the college football playoff, and they have to win one more game. And the worst part is that because they had the fourth toughest schedule in all of college football and the second toughest schedule in the SEC, they're the 6th seed. Because there's other teams that also were either undefeated or had one loss or didn't have to play against compelling opponents. So they're the 3 seed. So let's just say instead, now they have to go to the Swamp to play that matchup, even though they had the tougher schedule and they went 3-2 in that stretch, and they beat a South Carolina on the road, and they beat Alabama, and they beat Auburn, but they lost to Florida in Jacksonville, and they lost some other random game. Which team do you think is good enough to go to the college football playoff? Because for my money, I think Georgia's shown you time and time again with their scheduling, how they've played and what they look like on the field, the consistency of the quarterback room, the identity of the offense taking another step forward, and the defense only allowing 1 or 2 miscues. That's actually the better team. But the record says no. So now they got to play against Florida. And because they had a tougher schedule than everybody else in college football, at least in the SEC, they go down to the Swamp. They lose that game by a field goal, and now they're out of the college football playoff. Meanwhile, the 4 and 5 seed, they had the 5th and the 9th toughest schedule in the SEC, and probably the 18th and the 21st toughest schedule in college football that year. Does that seem fair to Georgia to not be able to go to the playoff? Meanwhile, that 5 seed that didn't really play against any compelling competition and still finished with the exact same record at 10-2, they punched their ticket to the CFB over a 4 seed that had the 9th toughest schedule in college football or the 16th toughest schedule? I don't think so. So the entire premise of, hey, we're getting more fairness and we're getting more tranquility and more competitiveness in this sport for the SEC is not true. It's the furthest thing from it, in my opinion, because we still have the faults here. And just to go ahead and say what was the fair part, there should be no automatic qualifiers. You shouldn't have an opportunity to say, well, because of we play in the conference that brings in the most eyeballs, we're going to have 4 teams go. What if the ACC, for some miraculous reason, ends up having 5 teams that are all ranked out of the top 15? Clemson goes off. You get a really good season from NC State. Miami actually meets the expectations that people put them on when at the start of the regular season. Georgia Tech comes out of nowhere and the Yellow Jackets are swarming their way to Charlotte. And then who knows? Maybe this is finally looking like absolutely a player in Virginia Tech. Shouldn't they have the most representation because they have the toughest schedule? Oh, no, they don't bring in enough revenue. So, therefore, they're not going to make it to the college football playoff that year. Sorry, that's just kind of the way it has to be because if they don't bring in enough revenue. That's where we are in the world of college football. So, congratulations. We still are at faults. We still have our questions. And at the end of the day, the people who are making the decisions for college football, they truly don't care about this sport. They truly don't care about the direction that we're going in. They truly don't care about what happens with the game itself. No, what they care about is putting an extra dollar in their pocket and profiting off of schools that bring in the most revenue. That's what they care about. It's why Notre Dame every single year, so long as they're 10-2, will be in the college football playoff in a 12-team format. They certainly will not miss in a 16-team format. You want to know why? Because their schedule doesn't matter. It's the eyeballs that are brought into the television screens when they take the field. It's the pure hatred of watching Notre Dame play college football that people are gravitated to, and not people like you and me that actually care about this game. People who actually want this sport to take another step forward. People who want to make this sport what was at one point the selling point of our lives. Because in our opinion, that was where I believe that we thought this was where the sport was going to go. No, they care about making sure that as long as people are paying attention, even if you hate watch them, they're going to go to the college football playoff. So who really wins in this deal right now in the new version of a 16-team format? Two people. Number one, those who are pulling the strings that are getting paid and profiting off of network television for the ratings to continue to go up. And number two, the people who believe that eventually we will move to a super conference and then we will have an NFL format where the Big Ten and the SEC in 2031, when this current contract is up with the College Football Playoff Committee and the current status of the College Football Playoff, will say, we're going to take all these teams from the ACC, the Big Ten, you're going to take these teams from the Big 12 that we know will bring in a profit, and now we're going to create our own league that allows us to now have playoffs. That will become the new norm of college football. But those are the only two who, as of this point, are winning. The ACC is not winning because it doesn't matter how good of a season they have. They're only going to be guaranteed most years, and I would say probably almost every year, 2 teams. The Big 12 isn't winning because they may be the most fun conference and, in my opinion, also one of the more competitive conferences on the regular. They're only going to get 2 teams. The SEC may end up not getting the right 4 teams in the college football playoff. And the same thing goes for the Big 10. Oh, and by the way, you got to hope then pray that if you're an SEC team like Georgia sitting at 10-2 with a loss in a game that you weren't promised despite having the second toughest schedule in all of college football, that it's a down year for the ACC, a down year for the Big 12, and a down year for the Big 10. That way you get one of those at-large bids. And you probably wouldn't care as much so long as Notre Dame ends up crapping the bed as well. That's what you walk away with right now. That's where we are in this sport. And unfortunately, until strength of schedule starts to play a major role, where that is how we decide the pathway for a lot of these teams, this is going to be the new norm that we see on the regular. It's all it is always going to be. Money talks, money profits, and money is going to control the way that we view the college football playoff. How to get out there? Somebody had to say it, because I know that we're all excited about expansion. Nobody's really excited about expansion. Let's be real. 8 was enough. We should have kept it at 8. We decided to go past it. It's annoying that we aren't. If you haven't already, like the video, hit the ring notification. Follow us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson and at SEC Unfiltered, because we talk college football every single day. By the way, to the dumbass who said, oh yeah, I'm in a bedroom, I'm actually in an office, so I appreciate you. Make sure you leave a thumbs up on the video. That way I know where to find you to reach out so you can come on the show and we can have a debate. I've been debating with everybody this past week about the college football playoff projections. Spring portal is over. Spring practice is over. And now we have a good identity about where these teams reside going into 2025. That's what we know. And so I figured I'm going to go ahead and drop mine. Now, I've gotten a lot of pushback, got a lot of feedback and a lot of criticism from people saying, how could this ever happen? Well, let's discuss. Here is my 2025 way too early college football playoff projections. Top 4 seeds. You already know how this goes. They get the bye because they won the conference. I think Penn State this year is all in. It's very hard for me to say that they are not going to be the team to beat in the Big Ten when you return so much offensive production, when you do lose your star tight end, but he's going to be a minuscule factor in this offense, but Kyron Hudson, Trevor Pena, which brought in Deontay Ross. They landed Jim Knowles fresh off of winning a national title in Columbus, and they have an identity offensively that I think is going to take another step forward underneath Andy Kolenicki. So I think that they have the opportunity to be undefeated in the Big Ten. Therefore, they win the conference. And the same thing, in my opinion, goes for Texas. Texas is not retooling or regrouping or rebuilding. They're just going to the next stage. That's what happens when you have 2 back-to-back top 5 portal classes, a great transfer portal addition, and an overall solid identity defensively. And so I think regardless if they were to play Alabama or LSU or Texas A&M, whoever it is in Atlanta, this is the year where Texas actually plants their marker as the legit force in the SEC. The other 2 at large, Clemson, I think is the most complete team in the ACC. And whether or not we agree they deserve a first-round bye, let's just call it as is. a Power 4 conference 90% of the time with the right record is going to get that first round bye. And it's very challenging for me to say that Clemson, when you look at what they have defensively, the return of T.J. Parker, Peter Woods on the defensive line, everything is there for them to be complete. So I think that they're going to win the ACC. Therefore, they get the number 3 seed. And Texas Tech, this is a toss-up. But I really think that they have an opportunity to lose one game in the regular season, go to Arlington, get the rematch victory over their opponent, and find their way into a first-round bye. I'm buying into Joey McGuire. I'm buying into what they're selling out in Lubbock. And I think they have the right identity underneath new offensive coordinator Mac Leftwich to end up winning this conference for the first time in what feels like over 3 decades. In fact, it would be over 3 decades because they haven't won this conference in that long. So those are my top 4 seeds. Number 5, I got Ohio State. Number 6, I got LSU. Right now, I'm a lot higher on LSU than most. I believe they have a shot to go to Atlanta and play Texas for a shot at the SEC title. Number 7, I'm going to go right now with my gut and say Oregon probably is just slightly better than number 8, Notre Dame. Georgia comes in at number 9. They may end up actually going to Atlanta, playing against Texas, losing against Texas, and because of where they currently sit, that third loss ends up hurting them. Alabama comes in at number 10. In a world in the college football playoff lore where, yes, there are going to be at least one conference to get 2 teams in, outside of the Big Ten and the SEC, I decide to mix things up. I think when you have the most returning production in college football, that warrants something. So Arizona State gets in as the 11th seed, and then the group of 5 schools got to go. And anybody who knows me, anybody who understands the way that my brain works and the way that I think, I absolutely love Dan Mullen. I love that he is back coaching. I think it's phenomenal that UNLV actually has an identity on offense once again, even though they lost Brennan Marion. I think they have a really good quarterback with Anthony Colandrea coming on in from Virginia. They have an opportunity to win the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West will be the conference that usually gets the first bid. Therefore, they're going to the college football playoff. We won't spend a lot of times on teams out in the SEC. I think Ohio State absolutely mollywops UNLV, and I definitely think that there is a conversation to be had about Oregon versus Alabama, but we'll get to that in a minute. Georgia goes on the road to South Bend to play Notre Dame, and this will be a revenge game. This will, and this will be an opportunity for Gunnar Stockton to prove we mean business. We mean everything that we say about being a team that last year they meet expectations. You ask anybody down in Athens, GA, they did not meet expectations. You lost to Bama, and you were down by almost 4 scores going into the second half. You lost to Lane Kiffin in Oxford. You lost to Notre Dame. Those are 3 inexcusable games when you think about what the identity is of Georgia. But Georgia, in my opinion, didn't have the same roster that they have right now. They didn't. They were decent offensively. They were missing, I think, a big part of their offensive line with that push. They definitely didn't have that same run game. Wide receivers led the country in drops. And I even think their front 7 was passive last year compared to what we usually see. So what does that mean? They went out and they added in the right pieces in the transfer portal. I like what they have at quarterback with Gunnar Stockton. I think he's got a little bit more mobility than we're giving him credit for. But I do think he is a solid pocket passer. I love the addition of Zachariah Branch. I think that he can win at all 3 levels of the field. I think in the red zone, you are getting a difference maker in Noah Thomas. And I think that bringing in Josh McCray, the running back out of Illinois, is just the piece on top that is going to take you over the edge. Whether you play in South Bend, Indiana or not, I think that Georgia right now is the more complete team. Therefore, I'm putting them in over Notre Dame. I think Arizona State's a really fun roster. I think this could be one of the better games going up against LSU, who may end up having the best quarterback in the SEC, if not college football, with Garrett Nussmeier. Both pieces are there, and their 2 ways that they got to the college football playoff are completely different of each other. When you look at LSU, they went big in the portal. They are walking away with the second best portal class in college football. They also have ample returning production on both sides of the ball that is really promising, like Aaron Anderson, like Whit Weeks, like Harold Perkins fully healthy. They also were able to go add in several pieces that are going to be upgrades from what they had last season. And then you look at Arizona State, who, yes, they lost Cam Scatterbo, but they return at 89% of production from the rest of the roster, including their starting quarterback and Jordan Tyson, who wasn't available for that Peach Bowl game against Texas. So I think this could be a back-and-forth battle. I think they have the best defensive line in the Big 12 right now, which could add pressure on Garrett Nussmeier. But I just feel like that when you look at the Tigers, they're the more complete team on both sides. If everything clicks, they may end up winning the SEC, and it shouldn't shock anybody. So I got LSU advancing over Arizona State. And Alabama versus Oregon. What do we know about Kalen DeBoer? Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but whether or not you think that Alabama can't get the job done without Nick Saban, he sure as hell can get the job done against Oregon because Kalen DeBoer's done it on 3 different occasions. Did it twice in 2023 and once in 2022. Kalen DeBoer has Dan Lanning's number. So that's already a massive victory there. This is one of the more slept on wide receiver rooms in college football from a national standpoint. Auburn's got great players. Ohio State has great players. LSU has great players. But Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, and the addition of Isaiah Horton from Miami may end up turning the tides. Then you get Ryan Grubb, who is the ultimate Robin to a Batman, and not in a sidekick way, but in as an advanced, sophisticated teacher way. If he was the missing element in the quarterback room, I don't really care who's starting in week 13. It could end up being a Keelan Russell. It could end up being an Austin Mack. It could end up being Ty Simpson, who's been in the system for multiple years. But regardless, I like where this offense is going into the fall. I like where this defense is. Go talk to anybody in Tuscaloosa how they feel about this secondary. It's going to be one of the deepest in college football, and it may be one of the best. You throw that in with what you have returning offensively, what hopefully you will be on the ground game with the Jam Miller and what you have with some other running backs that you brought in this past offseason. I think as much as Oregon's going to have a solid offensive line, and they are replacing a lot on the offensive line, as long as I think they're going to be good with the quarterback play, and they will be good with the quarterback play in Dante Moore. I'm just not buying stock right now that they can win a head-to-head battle, whether it be at Autzen or whether it be in Bryant-Denny. So I'm going to go ahead and lean that Alabama is going on the road to get the job done. Quarterfinals, Ohio State versus Texas Tech. Just from a talent standpoint, I really do think that Texas Tech is going to be able to hold their own. However, when you have the two best players in the sport on your team, one on offense, one on defense, it doesn't matter what you lose. You're going to be fine. That's currently how I feel about right now Ohio State. They're going to advance past Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders. And then we go down Penn State versus Georgia. If not now for Penn State, when is my only question. That's where my brain goes. And I know that it's painful for a lot of people to hear. And I know that people are saying, well, Cole, how dare you think that it's okay to ever believe that Kirby Smart can lose to James Franklin? Oh, how the short mindset forgets all the time about circa 2016 when James Franklin at Vanderbilt did do those things. So therefore, you already know that it's possible. The thing that I worry about right now is when you look top to bottom, where are the question marks on each side of the ball? I still wonder if this pass rush for Georgia is going to be complete. I love Elo Mendoza coming on in from Army. I love what they brought in on the defensive line. They have a very good recruiting class of young up-and-coming talent. They should be a player, I think, this year in the SEC, if not the player in the SEC. Their offensive personnel is going to be just as advertised. I think that you're going to get a solid run game from Nate Frazier. I think that you're going to get better offensive line play. And you have to because Stacey Shields is kind of coaching for his job at this point. I think that you're going to get a good pass rush coming up front. I think that you're going to get good pass protection that will keep Gunnar Stockton upright. But I look top to bottom. Let's just go position by position. Quarterback, Gunnar Stockton or Drew Aller. You probably are taking Drew Aller. Running back, you taking Nate Frazier, you're taking the two tandems that could go for over 1,000 yards. I'm taking Penn State. Look at the wide receiver room. I think it's a toss-up, but I think there's a lot to like about Devontae Ross and Trevor Pena. I think that Kyron Hudson may end up being a really solid difference maker. I think the tight end room is, even though not going to have a Tyler Warren, they have two very good, young, promising players. I lean Penn State. Defensive line, I lean Penn State. Secondary, I lean Georgia. In most locations, I lean Penn State simply based off of proven talent returning this year. That's it. No more questions asked. Therefore, I'm moving ahead with Penn State over Georgia. I think this could go to overtime. I think this could be a down-to-the-wire matchup. I think Georgia could easily upset Penn State, and it would be like no care whatsoever. But I look and say to myself, there's no way that I'm taking against Penn State with what they're returning in production. Now, LSU versus Clemson is one of the better games. It's a rematch of what we're going to see in week 1, but it's not going to be in Death Valley, Clemson, South Carolina. Howard's Rock will not be touched by one set of Tigers before they take the field. And I believe that we are going to see QB1 versus QB2 go up against each other. Now, here's the big question. Whoever wins this game, what can you take away to make sure that you're not the victim in the second go-around? Because easily, I think Clemson could hold their own. It's in their backyard. They have 3 talented wide receivers to where you look top to bottom and say, no, I'm going to go with Antonio Williams, and then I'll go Bryant Wesco, and then I will go TJ Moore. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go actually Bryant Wesco, and then I'm going to go TJ Moore, and then I'm going to go Antonio Williams. You know what? Actually, screw that. TJ Moore is my number one receiver, and the list and the trajectory and the communication and the flip and the switches, it can go on and on and on. They also have a good defense. People forget that Tom Allen came in as the new defensive coordinator. It's going to be forceful. TJ Parker is going to win a lot of his one-on-one battles off the line of scrimmage. You're going to get Peter Woods to complete drives, and he is going to be one of the most impactful interior pass rushers in college football. I think that you're going to have a really good season from Arion Terrell in coverage. But I just look at LSU and I say, every piece that was added in was perfectly constructed. You hear the kids these days say, my For You page on TikTok was built brick by brick. That's how I feel right now about this LSU squad. Your quarterback with over 4,000 passing yards is returning. You have a running back that flashed at times last year, who showed you, especially in several moments, he could be an enforcer. You have three different types of wide receivers with speed, size, catch radius that can win at all three stages of the field. You have a good tight end room. Your offensive line is definitely taking a step back, but not by much. Then you also have to throw in the fact that your defense is going to be miles better underneath Blake Baker, not just because of the additions of guys like Patrick Payton or Tamarcus Cooley, but because of what you have returning in overall droves of upside. So I look at that and I say, Clemson, as good as I think that you can be, I like LSU a little bit better. I actually like LSU a lot better. And I could easily see this being a blowout game to where Garrett Nussmeier cements himself as QB1 in college football this year. I could absolutely see it. And that's why I would lean with the Tigers. Alabama versus Texas. I think that Texas, again, we can talk about this. Kalen DeBoer versus Steve Sarkisian. What do we know? Steve Sarkisian is 0-2 against Kalen DeBoer. And it would not shock me if you saw a revamped Texas team, a roster that is replacing ample talent at wide receiver, on the offensive line, on the defensive line. They just don't have the connectivity in a bowl game, in a playoff matchup, in a winner-take-home showdown. I could see it. But I also say to myself, at this point, Arch Manning will have 14 starts underneath his belt. Bare minimum, should he stay healthy. He also will have built an entire offseason and an entire season's worth of reps to win with his wide receivers, whether that be Ryan Wingo or Emmett Mosley, the transfer that came on in from Stanford, Jack Endries, the tight end that came on in from Cal, or maybe he ends up having a really solid run game and he's trusting his legs a little bit more on third down. And the offense that has been now built around 16 to take that step forward is just going to win time after time after time in critical situations. I think that Alabama's secondary is going to put pressure on Arch to have to deliver. But a thing that a lot of people are forgetting about is that you're returning one of the better running backs in the SEC in CJ Baxter. So Baxter comes back, fully healthy off of the torn ACL, had an entire offseason to sit and fester and wonder, what could I have done to make this team better in 2024? I'm going to do that now in 2025. And it's a reason why I think Texas is going to be able to hold its own against Alabama. I think Alabama has proven that, number one, it's not going to go away quietly despite Nick Saban being gone, and that they have the right identity with Kalen DeBoer at the helm. But Steve Sarkisian also has a few years an advantage, and he also, I think, has the talent right now that is going to help you catapult over the Crimson Tide. So I got Alabama losing. I got Texas moving on. Semifinals, Penn State versus Ohio State. If not now, when? I'll continue to preach it. I think that this is a Penn State team that finally does mean business. They were a play away from going to the national championship last year. It's an Ohio State team that is reducing a ton of talent. And you're finally going to get Jim Knowles to have the last laugh over Ryan Day. So I got them going to a national championship. And then LSU versus Texas. Again, if you told me that Texas ends up losing this game, I would not be shocked. Because this feels like a trap moment. And it feels like a prove-it moment for both coaches. Steve Sarkisian has taken his team to the college football playoff twice. Steve Sarkisian has won 2 playoff games. He's also taken his team to a 2 conference championship appearances. What's Brian Kelly done? 1 year, college football playoff, hopeful, but they had to win the SEC and a bunch of other things that happened with them. The next year, a 10-win season with an offense that was good enough to win a national championship and a defense that sucked so bad, they missed the playoffs altogether. And underwhelmed last year underneath the first-year coordinator. They couldn't stop the run. They couldn't run the football to save their life. And those are going to be things that need to happen for LSU if they want to get the job done. And I just look at Texas and I say, they have the talent in front seven. They have a really good front seven. And the crazy part is they have the front seven that features guys that are only hitting their stride at the right time. And keep in mind that they'll have Manad Watson, who just transferred on in from Syracuse, at full speed at this point in the season. He'll understand exactly what is necessary for this team underneath PK to be able to take that step forward. He'll have it all locked down. No questions asked. And then you throw in a Colin Simmons. And then you throw in an Ant Hill, who was a great delayed blitzer last year and led the SEC in tackles for losses. And there's a secondary that features Mookie Taft and Malik Muhammad and several young players that I think could absolutely be household names in the SEC by the season's end. And there is still Arch Manning. And how fitting would it be that Arch Manning, against a school that he grew up probably rooting for, ends up getting the win to take his team to a national championship, which leads us again to Penn State versus Texas, 1 versus 2 for a national title. And I just feel like right now Texas has a little bit more. I think Texas may be the most complete team in college football, even though they do have the question marks with the overall returning production. I look at them and just say they're a good balanced roster. They're an identity team that knows what works and what doesn't. And at this point in the year, if they get past Florida and Georgia and whoever they have to play in the SEC championship game, and then they play Alabama, and then they play LSU, 2 SEC teams when other opponents are going up against weaker competition, and they hold their own, nothing is slowing them down. So therefore, Texas, year 2 in the SEC, they're your national champions. That is how I came about it. That was the way that I probably was able to figure it out. And yes, I know that we can talk about the money and resources about what Texas is spending, but hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to spend money by retaining as much talent as possible internally to keep your culture at its finest. That's what the Longhorns did. That's why I got the Longhorns winning. Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. Give me 1 second. Got to have a sip. And again, to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day to you. May you and your family be blessed this afternoon. Everything that I hope for you and your family. Come back to the show whenever you want. And again, there'll be chapters. So if there's a part that you don't really want to watch, just go ahead, fast forward through it. We'll click on another part. Here's what I do want to talk about, though. I want to talk about the announcing the, what's the right word? Now, let's phrase that. Cut, pause. I want to talk about the dribble that comes out when people say that I hate Texas A&M. And I want to address the elephant in the room. Does Cole Thompson hate Texas A&M? Now, a lot of you would probably say, absolutely. Remember last season? Every single week we'd go and do our preview videos. I'd be on almost every single one. And there would be the list. And it would be, Cole Thompson's picking against Texas A&M. He's going with Arkansas. Okay, well, then they lost the Southwest Classic. Cole Thompson, he's riding high when it comes to Missouri. Stellar offense. Look at the personnel that they have. Good run game. And then they were obliterated in Kyle Field. Oh, look at that. There you go. Cole's wrong again. And then it just became a running joke that Cole hates Texas A&M. I want to make this abundantly clear. I don't hate any team in college football. Number one, it would be bad for business for me to hate a team. It'd be terrible for me because then I would automatically be viewed in a light of you can't trust my word of what I'm saying. And I don't want to be that guy. I want you to respect my opinion or at least cater to my opinion on all 16 teams in the SEC. That's where I'm at. That's all it is. So I will never hate on any team. I went to the University of Alabama. I don't hate Tennessee. I love Volunteer Country, and I love Knoxville. I actually think that Auburn is one of the best campuses in college football. I think that Jordan-Hare is one of the biggest and best atmospheres in the sport. I don't hate A&M. I don't hate A&M. I don't hate Auburn. I don't hate Tennessee. It's bad for business. But number two, Texas A&M has got to prove it to me. Texas A&M has been in the SEC for over a decade. They have a 110-win season, and it came behind the legs of number 2, who walked his way into Bryant-Denny Stadium when I was sitting there as a young freshman and watched them win 29-24. And I had to hear about it for the entire summer whenever I was back in College Station, going out to the bars at Northgate. Hey, man, 29-24. Hey, man, 29-24. That was the last time that Texas A&M had a 10-win season in this conference. Since then, Missouri has been to 2 SEC title appearances. Florida has fired multiple coaches, gone from being a team that wasn't bowl eligible to being a team that went to a couple of plays away from going to the college football playoff. And Texas in year 1 with a 12-year difference has already been to the conference title game. Now, I understand Texas A&M played in a division that featured three of the best teams on average. LSU was always great. And then you got to throw in Alabama. And then every few years, Auburn had its miraculous run. I got to give you credit there. It's not the SEC East. But with that being said, I'm being honest when I say that I look at this Texas A&M squad. And I think if they're a top 25 team, but I'm not going to buy the stock and say, hey, let's put them in the top 15 and see where they go. I've been burnt too many times by Texas A&M. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. Texas A&M, you got a good roster. And in fact, I actually know what your offense is going to be this year, which is exciting. That's something that I think that if you are an Aggie going into this season, when you got to get ready to play in Notre Dame, when you got to go travel to Fayetteville for the first time and not be in Arlington for the Southwest Classic, when you got to go welcome in Florida, I know what your offense is going to be. It's going to be dynamic. You can run the football. You can run the crap out of the football, and you're going to be one of the more dominant ground and pound teams in the sport because you got Le'Veon Moss fully healthy. You got Amari Daniels to be your third down chain mover. And you got Reuben Owens. And the crazy part is, an Aggies 12th man, you know this as well as I do. Le'Veon Moss is special. Reuben Owens might be better. That's what you have in your run game. And so I know that you're going to feel really good about where that position is. As well you should. Because if it's going to be great. You have an offensive line that I think is going to be one of the better versions in the SEC. Because if you have 4 returning starters, you know what works on your offensive line. You don't have to wonder, hey, if our right guard is a newcomer that's joining the crew, is this going to be a problem? No, because you already know that he's played well. You already know what you're going to get in Fothery. You already know what you're going to get in Trey Zune. You already know what you're going to get in your interior offensive line. You feel good because you got 4 returning starters. So the next guy that comes on in, he has to be one in the pack. Hey, don't carry your end of the bargain. You got to step on up. We've already done our job. We already know our assignments. It's time for you to be hitting the books and studying for hours on end. That's your assignment. Their weight training is completely night and day different from what it was underneath the Jimbo Fisher era. The fact that they were able to go get Tommy Moffitt and turn this team into what I actually view as a physically imposing team is pretty sound. Tommy Moffitt won 3 national titles at LSU. Don't think for one second that he does not have the boys in the 12th man out in College Station prepared physically for this game. He does. And I think that your defense is being slept on. Now, I'm not saying that you won't have an elite defense because I don't think you will, but I think it's being slept on. Torian York, for my money, second best linebacker in the SEC. And there's not really a close third behind him and Ant Hill. That's my opinion. I think Cassius Howell has an opportunity to be one of the best pass rushers in this conference. I think he can win every single one-on-one of his battles and punch his ticket to double-digit sacks. That's how high I am on him. And Will Lee coming back for another year with Bryce Anderson at safety? Stop the presses. That is impressive. That is a number 1 cornerback who is proving I'd rather stick around than go to the NFL, be a day 3 selection, and help my team go to the college football playoff. That is what Texas A&M has. So you should be excited about those things. You also should be excited about the wide receiver that's coming on in. Casey Concepcion, if he's anything like he was when he was a freshman at NC State, that's a 1,000-yard playmaker. I know the Aggies have been waiting to see a 1,000-yard receiver since the days of Mike Evans. It's on the horizon. I think Mario Craver can be really special. I think Terry Bussey can be really special this year. I think that you feel really good about Isaiah Williams being your vertical threat. There's so much to like about the personnel. But then we have to have the other conversation, the holes with this team. Number 1, quarterback. How much better is Marcel Reed going to be this year? Because if I think that Reed can be a solid contributor, I'm not sure if I'm ready to buy stock in him as the difference maker, the way I can with Garrett Nussmeier, the way I can with Lenore Sellers, the way I can with DJ Lagway. And I'm saying those 3 teams because of those 3 teams still have faults. LSU, we don't know if they can run the football. South Carolina lost a ton defensively, and who the heck knows what Florida is this year with their schedule. I'll even throw John Mateer into that list. And John Mateer is kind of on the outside looking in because he hasn't played against the SEC competition competitively. But I'm asking myself, hey, I need you to step on up and deliver 1 key drive. Can you do that consistently through the air? Not with your legs like you did against LSU. Can you do that? Because if so, then maybe I will actually start believing. But I got to see it, and I haven't yet. You take away the rushing element, you take away his athleticism, what is he going to be as a quarterback? Because there could be a really, really good one. There could be a really, really, really solid one there. But I want to watch it unfold. Number 2, Do you feel good about the overall production at your pass rushing department outside of Cassius Howell? Because I can consistently say Cassius Howell this, Cassius Howell that, and I believe that he will be a stud. I believe he'll be one of the best players in college football in the SEC this year. No doubt about it. But what happens if he misses 3 games? Where's your pass rush coming from? How do you feel about the interior of your defensive line? Because that was a position that I had a lot of questions with last year. You weren't able to consistently go after the quarterback. You didn't really upgrade this offseason. How do you feel about the rest of your secondary? Will Lee is a number 1 corner, no questions asked. What about the rest? Is Julian Humphrey going to come on in and be that dude? Are you going to get better play from Des Ricks, the second-year player out of Alabama? Are you going to feel good about maybe one of your freshmen having to step on up and deliver in coverage? Because that's where I'm at. I think it'll be a night and day complete difference of what we see in the positional group from last year, where you're allowing Jada Maeba to carve you up left and right in the Las Vegas Bowl. And then you have Mike Elko afterwards saying, the one thing I'm so thankful for is that I don't have to ever see that secondary again. I think it'll be better than that, but how much better is the question? And then can you win with your schedule? Scheduling is a big deal and one that is not brought up enough in the world of college football. And I say that because I have to say that. UTSA and Utah State to begin the season. Okay, that's pretty good. You then get 2 back-to-back games against Notre Dame and Auburn. And one of those is on the road in South Bend. How do you feel about that? 3 straight games in a row. October 25th, November 8th, November 15th. At LSU, at Missouri, at South Carolina. Can you win those games? Can you put yourself in a position where you're going to be able to withstand that? And when you lose one of the other games, if you do, and you don't beat you don't beat Notre Dame on the road, and you don't beat Auburn, because Auburn did beat you last year in 4 overtimes, can you put together enough drives where you're good enough to guarantee that you will win? I look at Texas A&M and say that they have the right coach. I'm not going to deny that. I am a very big believer in Mike Elko, and I'm a very big believer in what the current status is in their recruiting department. And they have the sons, and they have the funds. And anybody out there that says that Texas A&M cannot be a powerhouse program doesn't know what they're talking about. Because for one thing, you have to be able to become a powerhouse program is have boosters that are willing to open up their wallets and say, how high do you want the check? And A&M has that. I have questions for this year alone. I think Casey Concepcion could be a great receiver. I don't know if he can be the one that will transcend Texas A&M into a 10-win team in a college football playoff threat. I think Marcel Reed is the right quarterback to fit in Colin Klein's system. I also think that there are going to be some limitations to his game that will probably cost you a win. I think that Texas A&M's defense is going to be miles from what it was last year in a good direction in year 2 for Mike Elko. I still think that you're going to blow a game because of your bad coverage or because of a bad play design or because of your inability to put pressure on a quarterback on 3rd down. So he converts, picks up the extra yardage, and finds his way into the end zone for 6 points, thus costing you a game. I think those things are possible. I don't say this to be mean to Texas A&M because apparently I hate Texas A&M. I don't. I want to make that as abundantly clear as possible. I love the Aggies. I love what the 12th man is, and I love what they are for college football. But I also want you to turn off your maroon and white goggles and look at this as a program for 2025. They're a team that probably is going to be 9-3, 8-4 at best. Doesn't mean that they'll be there forever. Doesn't mean that they won't end up over-exceeding expectations 2 or 3 years from now, and we can all come back and say, hey, remember when Cole Thompson didn't believe in A&M? Yeah, that's fine. But for right now going into this year, with the questions you have in the pass rush, with the questions that you have in your secondary, with the questions that you have in your quarterback room, I think 8-4 is a pretty good year. Losing to Notre Dame, maybe Florida, maybe you lose to Texas, and then I don't know. Let's just say South Carolina. You lose those. Okay, you know what? We'll survive. Maybe you don't lose to South Carolina and you lose to Missouri. Okay, you know what? We'll survive. Maybe you go 9-3 and the same 3 teams. Florida, Notre Dame, and Texas. Okay, we'll survive. That might be the case. I think A&M is in that range of anywhere between 8-4 and 9-3. I'm not going to say they're a 6-6 team. Not going to say they're a 10-2 team. I'm just not high on them for 2025. That's it. Doesn't mean I hate them. Doesn't mean that I actually have a personal vendetta against A&M. So now that we got that off the books, please stop sending me the hate mail at Mr. Cole Thompson. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson to saying that I hate Texas A&M. Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms at Mr. Cole Thompson. And as always, this show is proudly brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook is here to make sure that you enjoy every single moment. The app is safe, secure, super easy to use. And if you don't already have an account, FanDuel Sportsbook is offering great promotions every day for all users, whether that be profit boost tokens, new features like a parlay hub, build your own same-game parlay, or choose from one of the popular SGP already made for you in the parlay hub. Sign up today and go to FanDuel.com/SECU to learn more. And when you place your first $5 bet, whether that be on the Stanley Cup playoffs, the NBA playoffs, getting ready for the SEC tournament in Hoover next week, you win that bet, you're going to get $250 in bonus bets. So visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Get in the action with offers that you don't want to miss. Disclaimer: must be 21 and present in select states or 18 plus in DC. First online real wager money only. $5 first deposit is required. Bonus issued with non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering sports wagering on Kansas under the agreement of the Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat Connecticut or visit gamblinghelpline.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Okay, before we get on out of here, my top 10 transfers for the 2025 college football season. The fall window is closed. The spring window is closed. The rosters that we have now, we pretty much know these are the rosters moving forward. This is who these teams are going to be. This is what we expect these teams to continue to transform into. So with that being said, these are my top 10 transfers for the SEC. And by the way, if you hate this list, go ahead and send me yours in the comment section down below. That way we can continue to discuss who ends up being right at the end of the day. As I always like to do, honorable mentions. There were like 20 guys that I want to consider, and I just didn't have enough to put them inside my top 10. So I decided to go ahead and give a longer honorable mentions list. Noah Thomas from Georgia, defensive lineman Manad Watson from Texas, linebacker Josiah Trotter from Missouri, offensive lineman Boaz Stanley from South Carolina, quarterback Joey Aguilar from Tennessee, wide receiver Giovanni Gibson from Oklahoma, wide receiver Zachariah Branch from Georgia, cornerback Colton Hood from Tennessee, running back Rasul Faison from South Carolina, wide receiver Isaiah Horton from Alabama, running back Fluff Bothwell from Mississippi State. Every single one of them, I think, is going to have a good year. I think they're going to be solid contributors to their team, and a big reason why the win total is going to go up. But they didn't have enough juice for me to put them inside of my top 10. So therefore, they get a shout out, but that's about as much as I can do. Number 10, I'm going to go with Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy for South Carolina. South Carolina lost everything on its defensive line. Kyle Kennard, off to the NFL. TJ Sanders, off to the NFL. Tonka Hemingway, off to the NFL. And you do have Dylan Stewart, who may end up being the best pass rusher in football this year. And it wouldn't shock me if he ends up doubling his sack total, doubling his pressure rates, and doubling his overall tackles for losses. But somebody else has got to win on that defensive line. And Brownlow-Dindy was one of the more sought-after defensive lineman recruits coming out of high school back in 2022. He goes to Texas A&M. He gets buried down the depth chart. A new defensive coordinator comes in, one that actually was a pretty big involver in recruiting him to Aggieland. Doesn't utilize him properly, and he wants to hit the reset button. The skill set is there. You talk to people about his motor, his relentlessness, his hand usage, good pad level. I think Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy may end up being just as impactful as TJ Sanders was last year, where he ends up getting forceful stops on third down against the run and forcing teams to have the punt. He ends up chasing quarterbacks outside the pocket, and they're under duress, and now they got to throw off their back foot, and it leads to an interception from maybe a Brandon Cisse, the transfer that comes on in from NC State. So there's a lot to like about what I think GBD can be. I think the proven production isn't there. That doesn't mean that he won't end up being a very solid contributor from the get-go. So I think Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, he's one of my favorite overall players to watch during practices at Texas A&M. And what I've heard coming out of Columbia, he seems to be a really good culture fit for what Clayton White wants to run. I'm putting him at number 10. It may feel a little bit too high, but you know what? I'm willing to bank on the upside in the traits that I saw when he was coming out of high school. Number 9, let's go Nick Anderson, wide receiver out of LSU. Now, for those of you that remember Nick Anderson and his highlight moment, it came back in 2023. Dylan Gabriel was still at Oklahoma, and the Sooners were down in the Red River Shootout. And then came the drive of the lifetime. And there was Gabriel, and at the back of the end zone, there was Nick Anderson, up for 6 points. Down goes Texas. Well, he ended up having an All-American freshman season, was phenomenal as a route runner, great catch radius, overall solid footwork, and I thought that him and Jackson Arnold were going to take that next step forward. They were going to be the two yin and yangs that would take Oklahoma to an 8-4 year in year one of the SEC. Well, injuries happened. He didn't play last season, and now he's off to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But everything I said about his route running, his size, his catch radius, all of that is there for him to be that difference maker down in Baton Rouge for Garrett Nussmeier, for Tiger Stadium and Death Valley. And now that's just another key element that's added in for Joe Sloan to be able to work with a quarterback that we've seen in years past be able to make that jump from year one to year two as a veteran in their starting mode. So I think that Nick Anderson, with what we saw in the flashes during his time in Norman, what he's looking like being fully healthy this year, what he's going to provide, I think, in the size radius, and what he's going to be inside of the red zone for Garrett Nussmeier, he may end up being the wide receiver number one down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana by the time all this is said and done. 1,000 yards on the table. I absolutely believe that he should be in the conversation for 80-plus catches, leading the conference in yards after contact, and leading the conference in touchdowns. If Garrett Nussmeier can take that next step forward as a passer, I think that you can absolutely consider a guy, especially somebody with the size, the frame, the catch radius, all of that, like Nick Anderson, to take that next step forward. Number 8, Ella Mendoza, linebacker from Georgia. I wanted to go in a lot of different directions with Georgia. Zachariah Branch nearly made this list. Noah Thomas nearly made this list. But I look at what was the missing link at times last year for Georgia's to front seven. Pass rush, ability to set up third and long. Those were areas that were weak. And Mendoza comes on in after leading Army last season with 7.5 sacks. I think he had 8.5, 9.5 tackles for losses, 29 pressures, if I'm not mistaken, but a really good run defender and a somewhat, I would say, sporadic, but very unorthodox, but still promising pass rusher. And now I get to say, hey, no offense to Army, but what West Point was doing with you on first and second down was a good starting point. Now we're going to get you with Glenn Schumann, we're going to get you with Kirby Smart, and we're going to help you enhance your pass rushing skills. We're going to turn you into a more refined pass rusher where your pad level is lower, where you're winning your one-on-one battles on the outside, where you're bulldozing past offensive tackles, you're lining up properly at the line of scrimmage, and you're getting in the backfield and you're making sure a quarterback feels the pressure. He has all the intangibles to be that guy. The way that I look at a guy like Ella Mendoza, who could come on in Athens, GA, is the way I looked at Trey Moore last year for Texas. Do one thing really well. Get in the backfield and put pressure on the running back and the quarterback. Don't worry about having to play in coverage. Don't worry about having to, run assignments or some stunts. Just go ahead and work at what was your God-given ability at UTSA. Put pressure on a quarterback in a refined manner, and we're going to be successful. And now he's back for another season on the 40 acres, and it's a big reason why I'm buying stock into Texas to hit that next step forward. I think Ella Mendoza can be that exact same guy, especially working with Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart. It's like taking a player that has all of the traits that you want in an all-SEC, all-American, and saying, let's go work with the, best two defensive gurus currently in the conference. Yeah, they know a thing or two about pass rushing. Look at what they just turned out with guys like Michael Williams, and you throw in Aziz Ojolari, and you throw in a Nolan Smith. Welcome to the party. You're a new jackbacker on first and second down. You're going to be putting pressure on a quarterback. You're going to be winning in the run support. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we want. So I believe that he absolutely belongs on this list. He comes in for me at number 8. Number 7, and it pains me that I didn't think about him first, but I have to now. And by the way, I got to throw this out there because if I don't, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble from my Mizzou faithful. And I'm sorry about this. Kevin Coleman, he was on this list. I had to bump him off this list. I didn't put him on the honorable mentions for this reason, because if I thought he was going to be this high, but I had to move him off because I got to put this person on. Eric Singleton out of Auburn. Singleton is a Swiss Army knife. He can win in the backfield. He can win in the short game. He can win in the intermediate part. Good overall catch radius. Doesn't drop many balls. And he's going to be, in my opinion, the secondary option. That's why when you talk to people who are very high on Auburn, they're saying, hey, we don't really care about what happens with Jackson Arnold. Just don't throw into double coverage and we'll be fine. Well, that's not really fair, is it? No, it is, because if we have Cam Coleman on one side and Eric Singleton on the other, literally, just don't throw into double coverage and we'll be fine. Because both of them can't be covered at all times. One of the best receivers last season in the ACC. Great route runner, great at misdirection when it comes to winning at the line of scrimmage. Good overall catch frame. Doesn't drop many balls. Really good straight line speed. Good tracker of the football. And if Jackson Arnold can live up to the expectations that we had when he was coming out of Denton Geyer, there's an opportunity for Auburn to finally, for the first time since Y2K, have a 1,000-yard playmaker. Now, it may end up being Cam Coleman. It may end up being Eric Singleton, but I'll tell you what, the fact that both of these two are going to be on the field, the fact that both of these two are going to catch the attention of a defensive coordinator. Hey, you can't leave 8 open. Okay. Well, now you're going to leave 1 open. Hey, you can't leave Singleton open. Okay. Well, here comes Cam Coleman now winning across the middle of the field for an easy 6-point touchdown. That's the nature of the beast. And when you add in a talent like Singleton, last season was phenomenal working with Haynes King. I think he'll be just as form-fitting. Some consider him the best wide receiver in the transfer portal. I think he'll be just as easily making that transition on the Plains. So not really much of a drop-off between what we saw in Atlanta and what we're going to see at Auburn. Number 6, I got Patrick Payton. And Patrick Payton, this is one of those guys where I think he is going to be able to have, I would say, probably a similar impact to what we saw with Jared Verse when he came on into Florida State. So for many of you that don't know, Patrick Payton went to Florida State. He ended up not liking it. So now he's out in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But I remember watching the film of him when he was in Tallahassee. And a lot of the times he was right there. Like there are some times where we say production matters over product. And I'm like, okay, well, what exactly do you mean by that? Because the production says that Patrick Payton is not that good of a player, that he was underwhelming to say the least last season. And then you watch the film and he's winning with a great first step. And he's got a good overall balance when it comes to attacking the outside shoulder. And he's ripping past an offensive tackle and he's getting in the backfield. But the quarterback noticed it, so he already unleashed it. And now the ball is traveling downfield where an inept secondary couldn't stop a blind Cole to save its life, is now giving up points. And so Patrick Payton wasn't able to get the job done. Doesn't mean he wasn't a good player. They need help on the defensive line. They really do. You lose Braden Swinton. You lose Savion Jones. Last year, they combined for 13 sacks. And you're trying to be a team that can go to the college football playoff? I think Payton can be that guy. I'm predicting at least 9 sacks from him. I'm expecting at least 15 tackles for losses. And I'm expecting him to be that dude on first and second down to be a transcending tone setter for this Tigers defense in year 2 underneath Blake Baker. He can do those things. Watch out. I think the Tigers are going to be one of the more impactful teams of 2025, especially on the defensive side of the ball when you get back a healthy Weeks and when you get back a healthy Harold Perkins. Number 5, Casey Concepcion, Texas A&M. Now, if I'm getting the version of Casey Concepcion that we saw in 2023, I'm getting somebody that I know is going to be a 1,000-yard playmaker. And it will be the first in Texas A&M in quite some time. In fact, I'm pretty sure it would be since 2013, if I'm not mistaken. Great route runner. Good overall misdirection. A really solid playmaker. I think he's got great wheels. And most importantly, I think he does a good job of separating at the line of scrimmage. So I'm throwing him into the mix. I'm saying to myself, just win right across the middle. 71 passes, 839 yards in 2023. Can I get that? Can Marcel Reed just put yourself in a great situation where he's able to be in the slot, make a couple plays left and right, and then there we go. We're moving the sticks. Because that's what I think that you can get from a guy in Casey Concepcion. Now, I'm wondering about the quarterback position. I'm wondering about the personnel, how it's going to be run, especially with Colin Klein calling the shots. But from a skill set standpoint, I think Concepcion has an opportunity to be the 2nd or 3rd best wide receiver in the SEC by the season's end. And some would even be bullish to go ahead and put him number 1. I want to be that bullish. I just can't do it right now. Maybe if we're in midseason, I'll go ahead and I'll bite. I probably would bite at that point. Number 4, I got Jaden Ott. Now, Jaden Ott is a very tricky subject matter because of much like Casey Concepcion, what version am I getting? Am I getting 2024 version that's dealing with a ton of injuries, that's going to miss a lot of time, that when he's on the field, he's not as impactful because of the offensive line took a step back? Or am I getting 2023 version of Jaden Ott that was able to hold his own against Auburn when Cal played them in 2023? That was leading the Pac-12 in rushing. That was an all Pac-12 member. That was great out of the backfield. That was a perfect complement in the passing game to what you currently have with Fernando Mendoza. And what do we know about Ben Arbuckle's system? Running backs are not just running backs. They're weapons. They're standouts. They're studs. They're difference makers. And so I say, if I can get a guy that has 4.5 yards of play, 4.6, and he also is going to be effective in pass blocking, and he's going to be the Robin to John Mateer's Batman, and he can be a security blanket out of the backfield. And he's just going to be a trendsetter and a chain mover. And we're going to be feeling pretty good about his role with our offense and Ben Arbuckle. Oklahoma, they will get one win added to their resume simply because Jaden Ott's fully healthy. That's the type of impact that you can have with a quarterback and a running back tandem that may be one of the best in college football. So I'm buying a lot of stock in him. I'm also buying a lot of stock in player number 3, who's also a running back. I think Ahmad Hardy has an opportunity to lead the SEC in rushing. Comes on into Mizzou after finishing with over 1,300 yards last season at Louisiana Monroe. He averaged 91.3 yards per play. And we talk about this with John Mateer. I'm going to talk about it the exact same way with Ahmad Hardy. Talent's talent. Consistency is consistency. When you put up those type of numbers, when you're that talented and when you know that you're constantly pushing yourself ahead, then how in the hell do you think for 1 second that I'm not going to buy stock that when you go to another conference, you go to a bigger school, you're not going to be as impactful? Hardy can be that dude. 5.5 yards of play last season for the Warhawks. Great after contact. Huge lightning in a bottle speed. Taking that next step forward. Add all that together. You have an opportunity for Missouri not to have to wonder about what Bo Pabula is going to be or what you're going to get in the passing attack or what your defense is going to look like. You just got to say, hand the ball off to Hardy, and we're going to hoop. That's all it comes down to. So I'm very high on what Ahmad Hardy can do. I think he is a perfect fit for what Kirby Moore wants to run in Columbia. Number 2, and this is probably my second favorite move in recent memory, and I really want to put this at number 1, but I couldn't bring myself to it simply because of the position. But something about Steve Sarkisian and tight ends work, and that's why Jack Andrews is my second favorite addition. This is somebody that can be that security blanket for Arch Manning. Whenever you're a young quarterback, I always say, get yourself a playmaker that is going to take pressure and allow you to feel like that you're consistently moving the sticks. That's it. Gunnar Helm, extremely productive in Sark's system last year. 60 catches, over 700 receiving yards, finished with 5 touchdowns. It's kind of the same player. Not that great when it comes to blocking. Not that great when it comes to inline as a pass protector. But certainly going to be a playmaker that can welcome in a lot of under-the-radar big-time moves. Soft hands, explosive potential, good yards after the catch, really athletic. I think he's basically can win with good body control. Last season, led Cal in both catches with 56 and receiving yards with 623. He had 7 touchdowns. He's an every down type of player that is going to be able to win at the intermediate part of the field. And it gives you another target. It gives you another weapon. It gives you somebody who I think is going to take that next step forward. So I love what I'm seeing in a guy like Jack Andrews being that impact. Texas and tight ends, they work together. Jatavian Sanders went to the college football playoff. Great tight end season. Gunnar Helm, great tight end season. Texas went to the college football playoff. Texas going back to the college football playoff. Congratulations. Jack Andrews is probably a big reason why. And number 1, no surprise here. I think everyone knows this. It's John Mateer. John Mateer is the best addition in the transfer portal period. I don't care what school you're at. I don't care what conference you're in. Just simply player by player, the best addition in the transfer portal is John Mateer. Because it's not just Mateer. That's the point. People want to look at the quarterback and say, well, he didn't play against quality competition out in whatever you would call the Pac-2. He went up against Mountain West schools. And when he had to go ahead and get some big-time drives, he failed to meet expectations. Okay. He also finished with the most total yards for a quarterback in college football last season. He also finished with over 600 rushing yards. And he tacked on another 18 touchdowns with his legs. And on top of all of that, he's not having to learn a new system. He's upgrading. The facility is going to be nicer. The workout room is going to be nicer. His locker is going to be cleaner. He's going to be playing in front of more fans. But the rest of the little hoopla that goes into this, that's not changing. Because his quarterback coach is still his quarterback coach in Pullman. His offense coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, who helped him finish with top 10 in passing last season, that's his offense coordinator down in Norman, Oklahoma. And he's going to have himself some pretty decent wide receivers, even though they're not Kyle Williams. And yes, Kyle Williams was a special talent out in Pullman, but a healthy Deion Burks and Giovanni Gibson may end up being a pretty good complementary piece as a 1-2 combination. Oh, and by the way, I think that you're going to have at least a decent offensive line this year, and you got a security blanket on the backfield and Jaden Ott when he's fully healthy. You throw in the mobility, you throw in the arm strength, you throw in the connectivity, you throw in the relationship and the IQ of what works for this system and how well he has mastered what Ben Arbuckle wants, so much so he's a student teacher on the field. How are you walking away and telling yourself, oh yeah, no, we've had other positions that need to be addressed? Nope. This was the number one. This was the best addition. And in my personal opinion, it's the reason why when I believe that Oklahoma is going to be a threat in the SEC this year, I'm chugging the Crimson Kool-Aid. I'm dousing myself in it. I'm okay with that. And I'd rather be wrong on this than be late to the party. But I'm fully in on John Mateer. I think that he is absolutely going to be a reason why Oklahoma will end up finding their way into the conversation for a college football playoff chance. And I believe he'll be a massive upgrade from what we saw last season over Jackson Arnold. Now, I'm not saying that Jackson Arnold can't be good at Auburn. What I'm saying is that you give me Ben Arbuckle, you give me a quarterback coach from Pullman, Washington, and you give me the quarterback all to come down into a system that needed change offensively, it's pretty hard to beat. Wide receivers are learning new systems at other schools. Running backs are learning new systems at other schools. Defensive linemen are learning new systems at other schools. The quarterback, the number one position you need to be successful in college football, having to just say, okay, cool, same offense, different location, I'll take that 10 times out of 10. So those are my top 10 transfers going into 2025. Let me know in the comment section down below who are your top 10 transfers. Let me know, in fact, also who you believe is going to be one of the best players in your favorite school. Because I know there's a bunch of teams out there, whether it be Texas A&M, whether it be Texas, whether it be Oklahoma. I don't really care. I'm sure that you have it. We are out of time. Happy Mother's Day to all who celebrate. Happy Mother's Day to anybody who is watching this program. And if you are watching this program, go ahead and get your mama flowers real quickly. Judesters, thank you for allowing me to chase my dream to talk college football with a bunch of people on social media. Some people love my opinion. Some people hate my opinion. But the fact that I get to do this and I learned how to be trusted on trusting myself from you is something that I will always be appreciative of. You have made me a better person. You have made me a better man. And most importantly, you still want me to chase my dreams, which I can always be thankful for. So for those of you who are mothers, happy Mother's Day. For those of you who are celebrating your mothers, go do something nice for them real fast. And make sure that you tune back in tomorrow. Dave Shumay and I back on the show for Overtime Drive. We'll also be back on Thursday for the mailbag episode. And then I'll be back on Sunday, which we'll do another Sunday Fun Day. Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered, at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. Until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. Happy Mother's Day. Stay safe. Enjoy the start of your week. God bless. Remember, you only live life once. Might as well live it to the fullest.